Hello, welcome to the afternoon session. I hope you had a good lunch and didn't eat too heavy because it's going to get animated here, I hope. So right now we are going to have a panel discussion. That means an interactive discussion about innovation and data privacy and about how to keep the innovation alive in the cloud. So slowly but surely, I hope the room will get full as it was this morning. It was very, very exciting to see so many people interested about the cloud. And we are going to have this discussion with Sabin Popa, Cloud Strategy Leader at IBM. Sounds very good. So he's making cloud strategy for IBM. That must be very exciting. And then Patrick Kua, am I saying it right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, good. Principal consultant at ThoughtWorks. You will tell us about what it is.
Sure.
And that's how it's going to be like. So it's going to be the three of us.
Okay.
Here you go. That's your microphone.
Hello.
And for those who were not here this morning, my name is Elena Zvaric from the association Eurocloud Romania, the association of the Romanian cloud providers. And I'm going to jumpstart the discussion with our two guests here. First of all, we are going to present who we are, what we do. Each of you is going to have a small presentation, like 5-10 minutes. And then we're going to get jump-started into the main topic, which is innovation and data privacy. So I'm going to start with Sabin, because he's more ready. He seems like...
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, in the back there, can you hear me? Okay, great. So I hope everybody had a good lunch. Half of the people are still waiting for theirs, so you can consider yourselves lucky. Not that you're only here, but also because you had lunch while most people are still fighting for it. You can also be lucky if you are active today, because we're going to offer some prizes. So don't hesitate to ask questions and to come in the discussion with any kind of comments. And my colleagues from IBM will offer some actually pretty cool prizes. I want one, but they will not give one to me. Okay, so we were supposed to be 3 people?
Yeah, we got short of one guest, so we'll have to do with it.
Okay, we are the ones who are not scared, so we stayed behind. My name is Sabin Popa. I work for IBM. And since last year, my responsibility in IBM is cloud strategy. In my organization, which spans 10 countries in Central and Eastern Europe, you cannot hear me, okay? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Ah, much better. Okay, so we span 10 countries in Central and Eastern Europe, and we provide the whole range of IT services. That's the key word, services. We're not making any hardware. We're not selling anything. We're just doing professional services, consulting, application development, and so on. And IBM has made a big bet on cloud. It started a few years ago, and it continues by investing billions, like literally billions of dollars every year to develop our cloud capabilities. It's not a shame to admit that we entered the cloud market a bit late compared to other companies which were already seen as cloud leaders. But we are recovering quite fast, mostly through interesting acquisitions. Like, I don't know how many of you have heard of SoftLayer, which is one of the biggest networks of cloud data centers in the world. Now it's IBM. So coming to the point of our discussion, innovation and data privacy. I often get a lot of people coming to me inside IBM and asking me, what is cloud is already an old question. We're not going to talk about the theory, but they're asking me like, what exactly are some cloud products or some cloud services? And sometimes I tell them, yeah, we have this service which is called Cloud XYZ. And they leave. And then they come back and they say, you know, but I've done some research and we had this service before and it was called Service XYZ. And now you just put a cloud label in front of it. Is it significantly different? Is there some innovation there? Well, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, the answer is no. A lot of the effort is marketing effort. What we are doing, and not only IBM, but everybody's doing this, we're relabeling existing products, existing services as cloud. So the thing that I want to talk with you today is what is really innovative in the cloud area. And because I work for a company that's 104 years old, I always like to talk about history. And in the history of computing, we had some real breakthrough innovations, like the first electronic computer, right? It was a huge breakthrough. The first microchip, huge breakthrough. The hard drive, huge. The protocols that are now behind the internet, huge thing again. So we had, like, every few years we had a major technological breakthrough. Somebody invented something that truly changed the world, and it was a new technology. The question is there such a technology behind cloud? Is there like truly a breakthrough technology that is changing the world? And we can label that as cloud? I don't know. I'm trying to look at some of the technologies that people consider as cloud, and I'm trying to look at virtualization. We had it before. I'm looking at different kinds of APIs. Yeah, okay, there are some innovations there, the way you use them with cloud. But again, I would not compare that with the invention of the PC or the hard drive. That's like tiny innovation compared to what we had before. So before coming here, I was asking myself if cloud is just marketing and there is almost no innovation, what are we going to talk about? And my belief is, and there's also like a lot of information about this on the internet, and there's a strong opinion about this, that cloud is mostly not about technological innovation. We're not bringing we're bringing very few really innovative technologies because of cloud. The innovation is about the business models of the companies that are selling or using cloud. And it's one of the, looking back at history, you had like a lot of inventions in technology that were driven by the business needs. Companies needed to do their accounting faster, so we had computers. Companies needed to communicate faster than via normal mail, so we had email and so on. So most of the technological innovations in the course of history have been driven by business needs. What we're seeing today with cloud is mostly like companies are changing the way they're doing business because of cloud. And we see examples all around us. And let's just take one example. Who knows Any kind of cloud human capital management offering? HCM? HR in the cloud? There's a prize. Sorry? Okay, I will pass on that. Any other answers? Okay, then we can have a bag. Who said that?
More people did, I think.
Who said it first?
Who said Salesforce?
Okay, so
You got a bag,
yeah,
an IBM bag.
My colleagues should be there with the prize. Okay, but it's not a valid answer. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yes. So my point about the HCM solution in the cloud is that how was this business operating before? Companies had HR software a long time before, and they were selling licenses. You had to buy a license to use the software, and the license was based pretty much on technical things, like if you were buying the product for a certain number of CPU cores, you were paying a certain amount of money. The business model completely changed, and the companies who are offering these HCM solutions in the cloud, they looked like, what are our customers working with? What is the unit they're operating it with in the case of HR? Well, a unit in the case of HR is one employee. If you have one employee, if you have 10 employees, if you have 100 employees, you pay by that unit. You don't pay anymore for the product itself, you pay for the unit you use. And your unit, in case of HR, is the employee. This is a completely different business model. The way you sell things and the way you design your product, you're looking at what the customer is actually using and you're charging them by that. There are many, many more examples of business models that got completely changed by cloud. And I think it's enough.
Let's not solve the mystery of cloud in one step. Let's take smaller steps. Let's ask Patrick what he thinks about it. First of all, what is ThoughtWorks?
Sure. So I'm a technical principal consultant for ThoughtWorks, and we're not yet the 100-year company, although our founder has dreams of being a 100-year company. And we actually have what we call 3 pillars, and it actually correlates very well to this topic today. So we talk about pillar 1 being running a sustainable business, which I think most businesses would like to have. Pillar 2 is really important for us, and this is about championing software excellence. So I don't know if anyone here is familiar with the works of Martin Fowler, but he's our chief scientist, and one of the things that he does is really try to promote the use of appropriate technology and to try to get people to adopt the most appropriate sorts of things, and to think about the leading sort of technologies and how we can use them appropriately. And I think this is where innovation in cloud technologies really help. And the way that we work with our customers is really trying to work out what makes sense in terms of the technology landscape today. So we're a global company. And so we have customers all over the world trying different tools, seeing different things, and we can sort of see that innovation across the world with different clients. For us, pillar 3, and this is where it hits the privacy thing, it's all in balance as well in that we are a champion for social and economic justice. And I think not enough people actually in the cloud space talk about data privacy. So, I'm pretty sure everyone's aware of the Snowden things that have been going on. And as the world becomes more and more connected, we should be a lot more aware of data privacy questions. And one of the interesting things that places a responsibility on us as developers is that we have a role to play in this as well. So I think Snowden plays a really great role model in that he was part of that team who kind of was raising that flag of what they're doing here is kind of not right according to the sets of values of what we established in that sort of Charter of Rights and Human Rights in the sort of US. And this is something that we all have an influence in, that we all take a part of when we think about cloud technologies. I think there's different types of innovation in data privacy things, and I don't necessarily think they're different. So I'm gonna separate these two things. I think one interesting challenge that we see with our customers around the world is the question about whether or not we have, do we make use of public cloud facilities, or are we concerned about building up a private cloud facility in order to have data privacy? So a lot of concerns with today's environment is that it's wonderful that we can connect to a cloud service. So let's take PeopleSoft or Salesforce, and we're effectively handing over all of our information to these customers. And this is a big choice depending on what sort of company that you are. And one of the biggest questions that come from a business side that is definitely affected by the software side is, do you want that information, or do you trust your partner enough that you want to have that information in their hands? So earlier on the stage, there was the talk about credit cards, and even financial companies can't get security right where people get access to credit card logs. So it doesn't really take much for the security breaches of our partner to affect our sort of critical information as well, and we want to understand what those implications are. So I think what's interesting in the innovation space is the things like OpenStack around the standardization of allowing people to build on the open source community and to set up their own private internal clouds. A trend that we're definitely seeing with particularly bigger companies with larger development teams is the idea of a platform as a service. So who's familiar with Heroku here? Okay, not so many. So Heroku is kind of like, it's built on top of kind of Amazon, and it helps you set up a deployment platform for different types of technology. So if you have a Ruby on Rails app, it's very easy to start a Heroku sort of environment and get your Rails app with only a couple of commands. So it takes care of a lot of this sort of automation and infrastructure. And that's a really great example of platform as a service, which is a tool for our development teams to, instead of request a environment to deploy stuff in, is that stuff is on demand. And I think we see a lot of innovation in sort of internal, particularly the larger development companies who have lots of development teams and lots of operation people, in that it's reducing the friction of being able to create new environments to support new products. And I think that's a key innovation that we're definitely seeing, particularly with the build of internal clouds. I think another thing around data privacy, which we all really need to be, that we can actually take action for, is a concept that Martin Fowler posted on his blog, which we call data Sparsamkeit. There's a thing around the product side, which is, we want to know everything about everyone and all the information that we have. The Facebook or the Google model says the more information we have about somebody, the better that we can predict. And I think one of our responsibilities as developers is to really challenge our product people of saying, do we really need to collect this information from these people in order to build our product? And this is the idea of data Sparsamkeit. So that we as developers are trying to understand and balance that every individual person who uses our service may have some sensitivity around the information that we have. So can we actually limit what we actually store rather than saying, yeah, let's just store everything? Because I think the scary thing about data privacy is that when somebody breaches something, it's often the things that you wished were in place several years ago that prevented that stuff from happening.
Do you think developers would need some compliance training before becoming developers?
I'm not so sure it'll go that far, but I think some of the things that we do in our sort of P3 space is actually running awareness, which is a bit like compliance training, but it's not forcing everyone to go through that. But really helping people understand the fact of the types of information we store, and depending on what sort of service that we're exposing, how it can be manipulated. And I think we all have a responsibility in us to be a lot more aware about information leaks, about the way that people can reuse and abuse that information to really target individuals, around what, if somebody has a right of protest, how a government might take some of the information they have available on Facebook and manipulate that to present a different persona from what the actual person has. And I think this is one of the scary things that we're definitely trying to raise a lot more awareness of, which is around the cloud technologies bring lots of benefits, but it is a big thing around data privacy. And I don't really know what the sort of culture here in Romania is, but definitely in Germany, where we have an office and lots of customers, there's definitely a lot of people who, for instance, don't use Facebook. because there is a big consciousness around data privacy. And so, yeah, it's wonderful that there's these cloud services that allow me to connect with my friends, but there's a cultural interesting nature of the Germans in particular, which is, not having Facebook because they understand the implications of that. And we're trying to use, these kind of discussion forums to raise awareness of it. And I think it's fine to innovate, but it's also that balance of understanding how people might abuse that.
Yeah, I actually like the discussion direction now. We're going towards the ethics part.
Yeah, I think we need the nail on the head. Like we got to the point where we should be.
The point to discuss here is like, okay, probably in smaller companies, developers can afford to have that ethics and to come forward and protest if they feel they're not doing something right. But I'm wondering if this is also possible in large corporations, like you mentioned Facebook. Will a Facebook developer ever go and say, I'm not going to program this because this is a potential privacy issue for millions of customers? Do you think that he will...
Get out.
I don't know, I'm wondering. So.
I mean, it's a great question, I think, because I think it's a challenge. And I think everyone, and this is an interesting thing, as software developers, we have a certain power, we have a certain responsibility. And I think that it's like a Snowden moment, right? Which is, he could have chosen to stay silent, get on with getting paid. And for him, understanding the implications of what they were building for not just him, but the future generations as well. I think that's an interesting thing that we have to trade off. So I would hope that somebody, if they really feel strongly against that, and sort of take that choice and that option. I think it all comes down to that person.
Yeah, what I'm afraid of is like you come up and you stand for something that you believe in, but at the same time at the door of your employer there are 100 other people like you who are willing to take your job and not have the same ethics as you do.
Yeah.
So what are we supposed to do? Look for ethical employers?
Well, I think this is actually becoming a bigger theme. So there's definitely, in terms of, I forget what the movement's called, but I think it's like ethical capitalism. And this is the idea that
That's the next thing?
Yeah. No, I mean, there are conferences around this sort of stuff, which is talking around, it's not just business for making money, but actually, our planet's resources are limited. And that, we are becoming a lot more connected. We are a lot more global. And so we have a responsibility as businesses to understand that. I think to the point where we should be a little bit afraid of companies that have more power than the government, right? So, I mean, there are, lots of multinationals that buy up lots of different things and have a lot of influence in government already, particularly in lobbyists in the US. But I think we should be really careful about that sort of stuff. And I think this is, for me, it comes down to individual power and awareness, is that I think, this is how, I guess, freedom starts, which is everyone has to have the right to say something, and everyone has to have that confidence to be able to get there to say what they want.
So, strictly in terms of cloud, how do you think that companies can be limited to have this power? Like, it would not be ethical for a company to have all the information and own everything. It should be split.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is an example from the UK. So the UK government has recently gone under quite a lot of digital transformation. So if you look up the Gov UK, they've done, in the past, we've wasted a lot of money building a healthcare system that never got delivered, lots of things that just move really slowly. And one of the pieces that they're actually doing at the moment is called what they call the UK Government Verify project. And this is about identity management. And I think this was considered as part of that architecture, which is, we don't want one organization to own all the identities. So the architecture that they're going down is through the idea of different identity providers that are trusted, but it's distributed. So there is no one firm, there is no one government that has everyone's identity information, but there is a protocol of assuming that. And I think that's an interesting thing of us having that ability to influence that.
Yeah. I think we're now touching another topic because you mentioned an example from the UK, but and everybody's saying, yeah, cloud is global, cloud is spanning borders and so on. But I think there are huge differences between some countries and other countries in terms of ethics. And if you look to countries like China, I think it's like years away from what you're mentioning in the UK. And I don't think I'm not sure. I haven't tried this, but I'm not sure.
It's a different type of democracy, I would say.
Exactly. What I'm thinking that we would not even be allowed to have this session in China, probably.
Yeah. What's your answer to your own question?
Yeah, well, at some point, I think the governments should step in and limit the amount of information. Like, every person generates an informational footprint, right? You have your bank statements, you have your health data, you have your studies, your work records, and so on. So you create a huge informational footprint. And I believe that at some point, legally, companies should not be allowed to have more than a certain percentage about a certain individual's footprint, right? So if you let's say if you generate,
even if they have it, they should encrypt it by default.
No,
and make sure encryption isn't illegal.
That's just like a technical tweak. But I'm just talking like if you generate in your lifetime 1 terabyte of information, no single company should be allowed to have more than I don't know 100 gigabytes of your information. I think that's an interesting,
Even if I gave it to them?
I think so.
It's with my permission, my consent, explicit consent, why not?
Yeah.
Why should the government step in? Are you a socialist?
Yeah, that's
kidding.
That's a very interesting point, because I think like even today people are freely giving too much information to some entities like Facebook, right? Nobody's forcing you to upload all your photos and so on. But then, people are usually, some people are actually stupid. Let's admit it, right? Not just in this case. So
no, they're not. They're not reading the contract.
No. In general, like people are doing things that even with their own will, and then they turn against them, right? So at some point, I guess you should get some protection even if you want to give all your information to a company.
Yeah, and I think on that point, I think that we have to accept that there's a certain bit of naivety. I mean, we're lucky enough to work in software. We understand perhaps some of the implications of that sort of stuff. Think about all your family and friends and the situation that they might be in, not understanding what is potentially possible with the information from different things. So, I think the encryption thing is a really great example where there are still so many companies out there who store passwords in plain text and will happily email you that when you ask for, I've forgotten my password. And, we were having this discussion last night, and, a lot of people, maybe not technologists, but I do know even technologists, who will reuse the same password for different websites. And that's a huge risk, because it means that even the things that aren't, or the things that should be private, it's very easy for people to get access to it. And I think this is the dangers with the cloud, which is it makes somebody, with the ability to automate and script this sort of stuff, really powerful to be able to instantly get access to things and do things you don't want. So I think in terms of the innovation, some of the things that definitely I'm seeing are the things like 1Password or LastPass, which allow easier user experience integration of managing a single password manager, but you have different passwords per service. So, all of this is still, vulnerable depending on how good your master password for your password manager is. But I think these are really great advances in innovation of trying to solve some of these problems. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the security and data privacy things are about usability problems as well.
Probably the problem comes down to the fact that people think, usual consumers think that somebody is actually regulating the field, which is not true. So whenever you go to a telecom operator and you want actually to sign a contract, to get a phone subscription, you get a huge contract with several pages in very small writing, and nobody's reading that. Same thing happens with cloud computing contracts. Somebody thinks somebody's regulating them, but this is not true. So, as I was saying before, 2015 is the year where cloud certifications come into place to regulate this new and exciting field. So there is already a meta framework for cloud certifications, which is published on the ENISA website, which is the European Data Protection Security Agency. And among these certifications, our association is listed with Eurocloud Star Audit. So it's a new and exciting field. It's something that is about to happen. I'm not expecting a huge take-up of certified cloud providers in 2015, but people have to understand that there is a need for the certification in this field and the need for quality seals. How does the cloud provider actually fulfill those checks, control points?
And probably some of these certifications need to be extended beyond the technical part. Like most of them right now, they're checking the physical security of the data centers, right? Procedures, and so on. But then you should probably go further even in the area of ethics that we talked about, or even like you mentioned, contracts are sometimes too long and too difficult to understand for the normal user. So at some point, somebody will probably have to regulate that.
I'm going to disagree on the effectiveness of certifications. It may be controversial. So I know that people enjoy certifications. It is a certain thing, but I think our field moves very fast, and I have yet to see a very successful certified developer program that actually demonstrates the capability of that person. It says that people have sat a test, or that it's passed different things, but I think one of the things that you might see innovation, this is more prediction, is the ability to do these tests automated on environments. So this is a market building a product to test different cloud platforms for security concerns or to do things like this. So there's definitely a gap in the market of perhaps providing a security service, of which, once again, you have to trust them to do their job appropriately. But I think that might be a way of actually solving this as well, which is the making sure that you can buy some service which is running these checks and runs through perhaps the things that the certification program might do. Because with any of this, it'll be down to the weakest person. And maybe somebody who is certified had a bad day. And particularly if you only have 4 of them in your organization, it's going to be hard to really verify if your cloud today is up to date.
Yeah, if we're talking about people's certifications, right? Like your qualifications as a developer.
Well, or even platforms, though, because platforms will always change.
If we were talking about platforms, it's actually a bit different in the enterprise applications world. Some providers start to certify their platform, and then customers suddenly get an idea, yeah, this is a must. So whenever I'm buying a service, I require them to have that certification. I'm not sure if it really satisfies my needs. I'm not sure if it's really effective in any way, but I will put a checklist there. It has to be certified according to that standard.
You were talking, Patrick, before about the government-approved, in the UK, you were talking about the government-approved applications which can get into the G Cloud. This is a kind of certification in a way. How do they approve them? By what criteria?
Yeah, so they're working through that program at the moment with Alpha, but basically the provider of the identity needs to actually work with the government on demonstrating what their platform does. So I don't actually know what the criteria is yet, so they haven't really, or I haven't really read up on that. But yeah, you could consider that a certification program, but I think it's still back down to the individuals to have that individual confidence on it.
I think it's bad to say you cannot exist as a cloud provider if you're not certified. It's completely out of the question.
That was the point.
Of course
Customers put that in their request for offer specifications. I want that. And then if you don't offer it, you're out of the market. I'm not sure. Is it effective? Is it helping you? Is it helping the customer? Who knows? But if they want it, in the end, everybody has to offer it. Otherwise, they cannot sell their services.
This is the ground where innovation should flourish, because innovation is all about breaking the rules. And if you go ahead and break certain rules, you can say, okay, I have tried to tweak this aspect a bit, and it worked out great, and this is an innovation. But if you were to stick by the rules all the time, you would not create anything new and exciting. So
I think there's a big difference between the consumer market and the business market in this aspect. Like, for the consumer market, probably it's not so important to have all these certifications. And I really doubt there are people who are signing up for a new website, like, I don't know, social networking website. I doubt if there are any users who are checking what certifications that site has.
No way.
But in the business world, everybody's doing that checklist.
People click next, continue, and that's it.
I guess in my experience, I would disagree, is that I think people have that responsibility in a business to do that. but there are still many IT managers who violate normal security policies. So somebody was telling me the other day about how somebody can actually control computers through a USB key, and they had tested a bank, so they dropped a box of USB keys near the IT manager and said, please distribute. And he kind of gave them out, and then people plugged them into their machines, and it was a way to demonstrate that it's an easy backdoor thing. And even people who are normal, who are well-trained, who have done these things, they're fallible to these things, because I think that's the problem with humans. We make mistakes. So I think in an ideal world, I agree. I think businesses have that more onus. Somebody is kind of responsible for that, but it doesn't mean it always happens.
All right, so I think we have had an interesting discussion here. I wonder if there is anybody who would like to ask anything in the room. Yes.
It's not about asking. I totally agree with the idea that government should implement some rules about what the data can be stored or anything like that. That's a government should make. But in addition to that, government should monitor the companies are doing that. It's not about making a law and passing it. There are many laws still, even for Romania or any other country, there are laws. Even from 2001, Romania has a strong laws about security and everything. But most of the companies violating those laws and everything. But they don't really monitor these laws on anything like that. But they should do that. In addition to that, I have a suggestion like, companies, when they came to know that risk impact, like the top management of the company, when they will understand, okay, if some data breach happens, we will have to pay this. There are many recent examples like Target, many other online banking service who had credit card data leak and everything, and they have to pay back like $160 million or something like that. So when they will realize that, okay, we can have this risk. So I think the security awareness program from the management to the developers, not only the management, like top management, project managers or architects or business analysts or even developers, they should know a minimum security. Even as a developer, I think all the developers should know at least what is OWASP top 10, what it is and how it is working, how they can test it. Unfortunately, this is not in the current scenario. I believe a security awareness program through universities or education system can help to improve more into think about the security and data security and privacy and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I like your suggestion around a fine or, getting people to have that. And I think that's an example of something that could be done. I think what our responsibility as software people is that we need to get this represented in our government. So it needs to be a talking point about what is our government strategy around data privacy. Before we can even think about making a law out of something, it needs to be brought to the table to talk about it. And unless we encourage our sort of politicians and people to have that conversation, I don't think it'll ever happen.
I think that there's also a big gap in education, like university education, because right now law and IT are completely different subjects. I don't think anybody is ever thinking today to do two universities at the same time to learn IT and law. Okay, a few. But in the future, I think there will be a huge demand for legal services in the area of cloud computing. There's so many aspects, where your data is stored, it's moved, it's accessed by whom, the laws of each country, and so on. And there's going to be a huge demand for that. And the education system does not produce such people at the moment. They either produce lawyers or IT people.
So, do you have any suggestion to make the security awareness more incremental to the developer and more fun and more granular? Because most of the things developer does are done in small increments. Like every day, I do small things, and in a year I am an expert in this. When I become an expert, I've done every day. How would you suggest doing unit tests for like injection and stuff like that, or what have you done to?
So I don't know if you are aware, but Microsoft developed a card game So I think if you go down into the OWASP thing, I don't know if they have any ones there, but it's around getting people to have a bit of an interactive thing around, the perspectives of how a hacker, like what are the problems with this software scenario. And that tends to be kind of a nice interactive game that you can play with developers. That's kind of quick.
Yeah, that's similar at IBM. There's something like we've moved on from the traditional read this and sign that you understood the kind of education approach, and now there are like all these interactive scenarios. Like it's like a game, and you get a call from I don't know whom. What do you answer? This. They ask you when you logged on last time on your account. What do you answer? And then you go through the game like that.
Any other questions?
Okay, so IBM has been around for a really long time, and it's really big.
Could you speak louder, sorry? Maybe closer to the mic.
No. Keep it like this.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, so IBM has been around for a really long time, and well, it's a really big company, so I think most people trust it implicitly. What does IBM really do in order to ensure that the privacy? What does it do to separate itself from the herd?
Well, there are many things, but I think like one of them, the most important things that I have seen is a very strict following of separation of duties. So even like we discussed before that no single company should have all your private information. Is the same inside a company. No single employee should have access to do everything they want. So this is followed quite strictly in terms of separation of duties. And I've seen cases where people can even be fired for not following this.
Is this the need-to-know principle involved in cases?
Yes, definitely. I mean, that's a common business concept. It's not only about cloud. It's like you only get the information that you need to do your job, and maybe some additional information that you need to innovate. But certainly, you're not getting all the information just because you ask for it.
Like having the overall picture, only having a segment of what you have to do, and the overall maintained secret or something like that?
Yes, kind of like that, yes.
Thank you.
So I think we're done. If there are no more questions, I would like to thank our guests here, Sabin and Patrick, for the very interesting and thoughtful discussion. ThoughtWorks.
Thank you.
Thank you.